After 42 years, our intrepid archaeologist has uncovered his last artifact. And because we have obsessed over every adventure, well, almost, we now unearth all of our emotions as we excavate the final chapter in the Indiana Jones saga, The Dial of Destiny.
In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Bonus explosion. just when you thought we were done, we're back.
We are back. Hey, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And this is Guardians of Geek. Now, we did have our season finale. We weren't lying. That kind of was. But then we decided, you know what? Indiana Jones has come out. It's so iconic. We have to do a review episode of this. So this is like the bonus episode for this season. So this is episode 66. So it's an extra bonus, which gives us 13 on this year.
I think 12 or 13. Yeah, 13 maybe.
12 or 13. So we have more than we thought we had. So we're doing all right. We're doing all right. I think this is our I looked back. I think this season is the third most episodes we've done in a season.
That's pretty good. Out of
something.
Out of 5
it is
seasons.
Something.
5 seasons. This is our third best. Excellent.
I think our last season we did like 7 episodes or something.
I know. We don't talk about last season. Yeah, we don't talk about that. That was we'd forgotten all about that. That's our Crystal Skull year.
Yeah, that's our Crystal Skull year of it.
Yeah.
So just so you know, it's we're both obviously like big Star Wars fans. We're big Indiana Jones fans, and just when I was so excited, we've been talking about this for the last couple podcasts, like how excited we were about Dial of Destiny coming out. Yep. And it came out prior to it coming out. There was some like we weren't sure how it was going to be. There were the reviews, some of the critic reviews weren't great.
Well, I think we determined, or it has been determined, that part of the problem was that it was premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in France, and it's not the kind of movie that Cannes audiences are there to see, right? And the Cannes critics are critical of the kind of movie that plays at Cannes normally, not a blockbuster popcorn film. So the problem was the critics that were critiquing the movie right after Cannes were like being really harsh on it, because I don't think it was the kind of movie that they wanted to see. So I think it started out wrong. I mean, I know they put it there because they wanted to give Harrison Ford like the grand standing ovation and, you know, cap off his career as Indiana Jones, but I just think that was not a good way to start the review process.
This is another classic. The critics are here and then the fans are up here. Like it's like I haven't read anyone's like just personal review of this movie on Twitter, whatever, that hasn't said that they didn't love it or didn't like it, or at least, you know, thought it was better than Crystal Skull.
Yes.
I'll put this in perspective right off the top that you're never going to capture the lightning in the bottle of the first couple Indiana Jones films.
Right.
Like, so, I mean, let's put that aside right off the top. Like, you're just not going to. But before we get into this, I'll say just generally, I think this does a pretty good job. And if you haven't seen haven't seen Dial of Destiny, do not watch this until you have seen it. This is full spoilers. So 100% I'll just put that out there. Yes, 100% spoilers. So, so we'll do what we normally do with movies. We'll do our TV shows. We'll do our hits and misses. And then we'll hopefully be able to figure out whether it was great, good, however you want to put it. And of course, this would be the last Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford.
That's what we've been told. Yes. Who knows? But Harrison Ford has said he's done.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, for a fact, it's going to come back in some way, shape, or form with a new actor at some point down the line. But for him, this is the end. So, which is good. And Spielberg and Lucas still involved as producers on this. And James Mangold directed it, who directed Logan, Wolverine, Walk the Line, Ford versus Ferrari. So he's got a pretty good track record of movies. So I was pumped going into this. I'll tell you that. Like I didn't want to have my expectations too high
Yes.
going in, but I was super excited about it because just from the I only watched the first trailer because I didn't want to get too much spoiled, but that was enough for me to go, okay, I think this will be better than Crystal Skull. I love how Crystal Skull is like the base of like
Well, quite honestly, I was telling people before I went to see this, as long as this movie makes me sort of forget that Crystal Skull even happened, I'll be happy. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect movie for me. It just has to exceed the level of Crystal Skull. That's all I was hoping for.
that's all we need.
Yeah, I just wanted it to end on a bit of a higher note. That's it.
I rewatched all of them before going into this, just so I was ready. And Crystal Skull, I want to like it, but I know we've talked about this on the podcast. We did a whole podcast on it, and it's like the CGI and the CGI gophers and the monkeys, and there's just a lot about it that just like there's you can suspend your disbelief in these movies, but the CGI ruined it in that movie.
Yeah, it did. Well, that and well, I mean, there are a lot of things. We've done an entire podcast on it, so we don't have to go.
Yeah, we don't.
Anyway, so this needed to be better than that. That was my baseline. Was Crystal Skull. It needed to go. Put that away. Put it away.
Oh, sorry. All right, so let's dig into this. Hits and misses. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. All right, Larry, I'll start you off. Hits, miss, whatever you want to do.
Okay, I'll start with a hit. We'll start good.
And we may have some of the same hits and misses. So
yes,
we'll see how it goes. Okay.
Yeah, we'll start on a high note. I was a little worried going into this because they had talked about the de-aging. So they were going to de-age Harrison Ford because the whole opening scene takes place during World War II again. So I was a little anxious about that because we know how that's gone. Fortunately, they've figured it out. So I thought the de-aging was quite awesome. Like you could vaguely tell his lips weren't like quite matched up, like the mouth. That's what they always have the hardest time with, his mouth. But the de-aging I thought was great. So that whole opening scene that took place during World War II, it felt to me like they shot it back in the day. And I had read that they did use some unused footage from the 80s when they were shooting these. So some of it may have actually been a young Harrison Ford. I don't know how they mixed that in with the de-aging, but it sold me. Like I felt like I was watching a lost Indiana Jones movie from the 80s. So the de-aging, and then I'm going to add to that just the action, like the whole, they really went 2023 level excitement with this movie. The action, the car chases and the tuck chase was so exciting. I was like, they really brought it. Like it was kind of like Mission Impossible level action, which was cool. So I thought the special effects and the action really brought this movie up to today's standards. So I was like, this is great. I was in all in.
I had almost the same hit as you as that, but I just thought that whole opening sequence of this was amazing. Like I couldn't believe, like, I know they did the de-aging in Mandalorian with Luke Skywalker, which also looked fantastic. So I knew they could do it and I knew it could look good, but they could have done a whole movie with him de-aged. Like it was just absolutely amazing. The whole opening sequence to me was just, it was reminiscent of another Indiana Jones movie. It looked amazing. It was action packed. And I was like, this is great. Like I was so in off the first bit of this movie. That was a great way to open it. And then of course it comes back again later on, whatever happened in that time period. But it reminds me a little bit of the opening of the third one where he's just a kid.
Oh yes,
and
the
Last Crusade. So that it reminds me of that a little bit, and then that sort of has repercussions later in life. But but it was so good. That was such a great opening sequence, and it just set the tone for the whole movie for me.
I thought so too. And just talking about that opening sequence, it was a really good throwback to how they used to do indie, because Raiders of the Lost Ark, you remember that whole opening sequence, he was looking for the idol, the fertility idol, but that's not ultimately what he was looking for in the movie. He ended up looking for the Ark. So it's the same thing in this. So in this one, he was looking for the spear, the spearhead in that opening scene, but that's not what the movie was about. It was about this Dial of Destiny. So it was the same formula that they used in the Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it was a really nice nostalgia moment for Indiana fans. It was because it felt like that's how Indiana Jones movies are. He's looking for a bunch of different things.
Yeah,
So
he's always had something. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a they hooked us in right from the beginning. That was awesome.
That was definitely
Right.
it for me. That was like such a cool sequence. It was just so good.
Yes.
I'll go with a miss.
All right.
I don't have a lot of misses. Like my misses are fairly weak, to be honest.
Mine are
But
too.
I thought the pacing was a little slow at times.
Yep.
It was a little long. That was my only. I guess that's a miss. But it was just, it could have been shortened a little bit. I thought it was just a little bit long.
Yep.
But I mean, I guess the more indie we can get, the better. But there was some slow moments in it. But I mean, all of them have a slow moment here and there, if you go back to look at any of them. But I just thought it could have been trimmed maybe by like 10, 15 minutes.
I think so too. So ironically, my first miss, the way I have it written, is a little long / pacing. That's exactly what we're working. So it's exactly.
Were we sitting beside each other during
I don't
this?
know what we were doing.
So far, we're like 2 for 2 on the.
Yep. That's exactly what I said. I felt the exact same way because it's almost 2.5 hours, so it's long. And I want to go back and see it again. I've only seen it the one time. I think I'm going back this week. But I do want to see it again because I feel like it's the kind of movie that maybe after you watch it the first time and the story, it's coming, the pacing might feel better. Because it's always the first time you go see a movie, you don't know it's coming. It feels a little bit slow because you're like wanting the next thing to happen, or when is it going to happen? But if you go back and you know what's coming, maybe the pacing will feel different. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping. But yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought they could have trimmed it by about, maybe about 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, I have to say too that both of us, like normally when we watch a movie on the podcast or for the episode, I'm making notes as it goes on and things like that. Like this, we've only seen it in the theater once, so we haven't this is some of the details will be off the top of my head as opposed to like having written them down or whatever. But it's no, I agree. I thought that just a little bit. I was like, okay, and then it sped up, and then the whole ending was great. So
yes,
but
yeah, I agree. It could have been tightened, but. Again, like you said, the more indie we get, the better. So I'm not complaining that much. I was still happy it was happening.
Okay, I've got a hit.
Okay, go.
I thought the tone was way better in this movie.
Yes.
Than the previous one. It was a bit more of a better mix. I think what they did in the last movie is they went too goofy in it. And I'll give you an example of a part where Marion's driving that boat car and she goes off the cliff and hits the branch. Like as if she knew this was going to happen, and then it lowers her to the next thing, and then they go down the next one. Like it just got too goofy. Like it was just incredibly goofy, and they mistook goofiness for fun.
Yes,
if that makes sense. Like
totally.
And
makes
but
sense.
this one had a good mix of kind of you felt like there were real stakes and that he was a real situation he was in, but then you still had the one-liners and kind of the fun tone of an Indiana Jones movie as well.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so so my hit for this one, I have a hit too, and I had written down more mature indie story, not so goofy.
Yes,
that's literally what I wrote. That is hilarious. Okay.
We think exactly the same.
I don't know what's going on, but we didn't even see the movie together. We were in two different.
No, we haven't even talked about it yet. This is the first time we're literally talking about it.
Yeah, but it's true. But it's true, and so that's exactly what I felt like. I felt this was an actual more mature Indiana Jones movie, and it makes sense because now Harrison Ford is what, 78.
Yeah,
he's not a kid. Like he's lived this really rough life. This hard life. A lot of things have gone on that have been painful and hard for him. It should be a more mature movie. If they had gone goofy somehow with it, it would have totally bombed because that just would not have made any sense. Like it just, and I'm guessing that Harrison Ford had a lot to do with it. Saying no, this is how my character is now. This is what Indiana Jones is. Like he's kind of a grumpy old man. So
yeah,
because he was at the beginning, he kind of was and throughout he was kind of more like a grumpy old man. But that's what I feel like he should be. He earned that over years and years of adventuring and getting shot 9 times and going through a divorce and his son dying. I just thought that was that was exactly so. You're right. The tone was way better in this one. Not goofy.
Okay, see if we can have the same one on your next miss.
Okay,
Give another miss.
I'm gonna do another hit. I only have one more miss, believe it or not.
Okay.
So I'll save that one. I loved that they built the backstories a bit more, like the character, the character's stories. So his story with Marion, and I mean, they had to address Mutt from like his son from Crystal Skull. They had to address him, like he couldn't just disappear. And I loved that the story that they gave him was that Mutt decided to enlist in the army and was killed in Vietnam. I figured it was Vietnam because this was now 1969 or 68 or something.
Yeah, I think it's 68. I think
68. So yeah, so he would have, because I believe the Crystal Skull was like early 50s or mid 50s. So it would have been Vietnam that he probably, either that or Korea. But anyway, one of those wars. Anyway, so Mutt was killed, and because of the trauma of their son's death, that he and Marion ended up getting a divorce, which is a realistic thing. Like that's a thing that could happen. And I loved that just I love that that's how they pulled the story together. Like that they could bring Marion back, and but there was tension, because there was always tension with him and Marion. Like
it was never perfect.
Or from Raiders of the Lost Ark, like it made sense that they had this tumultuous relationship all the way along. I thought that was awesome, and it just added to his whole gruff nature and how he was sort of grumpy old man, grumpy old Indy. So I just loved that the characters were developed. It wasn't just pure action. It was that they really got you invested in these characters even deeper. So I thought that was awesome.
What I liked as well, speaking of character development, is the character development of the bad guys as well. Like there was there was a set group of like henchmen that you knew who they were. There was what's his name, Mads Mikkelsen. Mads. Yeah, like his character fully developed from the beginning, from the opening scene to this time. Like he just like there was a tension there because you knew more about him and what he was doing. Yes. But yeah, I like there was, rather than just a faceless villain, what I mean? Like there was more to it. Kind of like in the first Indiana Jones, when he obviously had the rivalry with this other guy, and then he comes back later on in the story. So yeah, I really liked how they developed that. The Mutt thing, I was never like, I know everyone hates Mutt, but I didn't hate Mutt. I just thought he was like, it was the whole movie in itself was just like, Mutt wasn't like that bad. It was just, I mean, the kind of character they made him wasn't great, but I don't think Shia LaBeouf was terrible in it. Like he was not put in a great movie, essentially, right? Like, but I like, if he would have showed up in this, I wouldn't have been disappointed or been annoyed or anything. Like,
no,
but
I agree.
I'm glad they didn't base it on him.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't like. Yeah, you're right. I don't think he detracted from Crystal Skull. I think you're right. It's the whole movie, but I don't think he was necessary. Like I don't.
No, 100% not. And I like what they did with him. I thought that was kind of a neat twist that I wasn't expecting. Good.
Yeah, because I was a little bit worried that this was going to be sort of a passing of the torch movie. Do you know what I mean? Like Indiana Jones was going to, retire, and then his son was going to become the new Indiana Jones. And I was like, it's like Captain Caveman and Son. I was like, I don't want that to happen. I didn't want there to be a passing of the torch so that there'd be a new Indiana Jones. Like I didn't want that. And so I'm really glad that they didn't. Like you said, he would have been fine in it, but I just didn't want to see him be the next Indiana Jones. So he's gone, he's out of the movies. That's not going to be a possibility, I don't think.
And I think too, like we can all agree that Indiana Jones works the best in like the 30s and 40s. Like that's like that era of like no cell phones and like the technology and like that's when he works the best. Like that he's just this adventurer of that time. Like that, because an adventure doesn't really work nowadays as much because they can find things using sonar and like it's like you know what I mean, it's not quite the same as it would have been back then, like and just the mystique and everything that like around everything that they had. So but
and that's the thing, is that these movies were like, when George Lucas came up with this story and they put this thing together, it was supposed to be based on the serials from like the 1930s or 1940s, 30s, 40s, 50s. When they were shooting in parts of the world that nobody had seen before, like deepest, darkest Africa and the Congo and places like that were so exotic. and so that was so cool. So, but if you go much past the late 60s, everybody's traveled the world. Nothing is,
Yeah.
that mystique is gone. So yes,
Yep.
it has to be. And that was actually one of my hits, was the vintage. This was felt like vintage Indiana Jones. Like he was still going places that hadn't been explored, and seeing things that the world didn't know about. But by this point, in like beyond the 1960s, stuff has been discovered. Like it would be
Yep.
hard to do that. So this was as late, I think, as they could go in history and still keep it feeling vintage. So
Yes.
that's really important. Like I think if they ever go back and redo Indiana Jones or something, it has to be a prequel. Like it has to be almost like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Like it's got to go back like to before the 1930s. Because
Yeah.
it was, I think wasn't Temple of Doom 1936. I think because the first one was like,
Yeah, because chronologically it's the first in the series.
that's right. Yeah. So it has to, I think it has to go back to before that, because if Harrison Ford's not in it, they've got to get a new actor. So it's got to go back even further, like the 20s or the turn of the century or something. Anyway, because Indiana Jones is all about vintage. It's all about adventuring and exploring and stuff like that. So this we felt like that to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
One of my misses was I thought the Dial of Destiny was a little confusing of exactly what it did and what it was. Like, even though they kind of explained it, but it would just, I think it was just a little confusing what they were trying to do. Like, it kind of gets explained a little bit better near the very end of the movie, but the whole time I'm like, so what's it do? Like, so you put the pieces together and then, there's another piece that needs to go in the middle of it. Like, there was a lot of like things about it that I'm like, this is a little bit confusing. And why are they going underwater? What's down there? Like, it's like,
yeah, and it just essentially just opens a door. Like it opened a door to time, like a portal. But that like I wasn't quite sure what that meant and what they do, like why they were going back. You're right. I think it needed a little bit more explanation.
Do you have to go in a plane? Does it, like, I wasn't sure. Like, exactly. I wasn't sure. Like,
and that's the thing, like, because it was originally created by oh no, I can't remember the ancient the person who created it in,
let's call him Aristotle. I don't know if that's who it was.
I don't think it was, but that guy. They didn't have airplanes back then, so how would they have used this thing? Like if he had opened up a portal, how would he have gotten to it unless it was on the water and he could oh bless you,
excuse me.
Unless it was on the water and he could have like taken a boat through the portal.
I guess it just, the portal would open anywhere. I don't know why he needed to go through like on a plane. I wasn't really sure, like why, like unless they just wanted to have it to make it look more official when they showed up, like at an airfield or maybe where they needed to go. It would be easier for traveling or whatever. That wasn't really explained, nor did it really need to be. But it was
and that's true. It didn't really need to be, like it wasn't essential to know all the science behind this thing. It was just the fact that it opened up and you take your plane through it and you're good to go.
You just go right through and then you're like right there. And then they're like, oh, it's closing up. But how do they know that? Like, how do they know what it's doing and how long it was going to stay open? And there's a lot of just confusing parts of that. Like, again, just suspend your disbelief and you're fine. But like, the more I thought about it afterwards, it was just that whole section was a little confusing for me. Like like they didn't really know what it was going to do or how, that it even would open up a portal, because they have no idea how it works or whichever.
And the timing, you're right. Like how did they know how long it was going to stay open? Again, we've only watched this movie once. Maybe there was more explanation. We'll watch it again and maybe but like how did they know how much time they had before they had to turn around and go back? Like, why wouldn't the portal stay open forever until you change the dial? I don't know. I'm not and
it seemed too like it was definitely going to be used for some sort of evil purposes, but the guy that built it didn't seem very evil, so I wasn't really sure. But maybe it was the guy who was building it for was going to use it. I got confused of all the Greek names and who was doing what.
I think who he was building it for was bad, but I think it was even more that Hitler had heard about this thing and realized that if he could get it, then he could go back in time and change things and do that. So I think it was, even if it wasn't intended for evil originally, it was going back to the whole Nazi thing, and I think that was the reason for it. But while you were watching the movie, it didn't impact it that much. So I
No,
wasn't.
it was just this minor detail, but it was just one of those things where it was like the other ones just seemed more like you kind of knew what it was going to do. This one was a little bit more confusing, I thought. But other than the crystal skull, I had no clue what even that was, or
No idea.
but,
No.
but or nor the whole movie, nor everything in the movie.
No. I have no idea. Okay, I only have one more miss. I've covered my hits. I've got one more miss. My only miss was that I fully expected to be bawling my eyes out at the end of this thing.
Okay, yep.
I really thought that I was gonna be like, it was gonna be like a gut punch of emotion at the end, just because knowing it was the last time we're gonna see Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. I kind of thought that. I didn't feel that. And I think it was because I thought about it more afterwards.
It's so cold.
So I don't. I have no soul. I think that's why. I think that's what it was. But I think it was because they ended with Marion and Indy kind of getting back together, and they had this beautiful moment in the kitchen, and the camera pulled away, and you saw them kissing, and then the camera cuts to outside their apartment, like through a window, and like the camera go like it's a long zoom shot on a like a jib shot pulling away as you see his daughter, his goddaughter walking away, and the camera pulls up through the fire escape, and you see Indy's hat pinned to the clothesline, and a hand reaches out, presumably Indy's, and grabs the hat and pulls it in the window, and that's the end of the movie. And so the very last scene you see is kind of light, like it's lighthearted, like he grabs his hat and pulls it into the inside the place. I wish that they had ended with that scene of the kiss. Like if they had just ended with that moment with Indy and Marion reconcile, they get back together, and they love each other, and there's a kiss, and the camera pulls away just as they're kissing, and the screen does that circle wipe, them just kissing. That would have been, to me, that would have been a much more powerful moment, just to end with that, rather than to end seeing the fire escape. Like I mean,
I know what they're doing with that. Like it was fun, a fun little moment. But I don't know. I was opposite, because when I saw her walk in the room, I started tearing up. Like as soon as she walked in.
But that's like that I did when she walked in. Like that was the moment. That was the moment. But I wanted that to be the last moment, so that the credits roll as I'm like, ah! but then it was interrupted by this fire escape shot.
Maybe I'm just less callous than you are, but I enjoyed the end, and I thought it was very sad. But I guess the cold heart of Larry just didn't quite.
I hate everything generally. Not that it was bad. Like I don't hate the ending. I was hoping
it was the order of how they shot it.
Yes.
Even if he had his hat in his hand and he put it in front of the camera, or something, and blacked it out, like that.
Or if he had had the hat on his head and they started kissing and he pulled it down, like sort of to cover their faces. I don't know, something like or put it so the hat covered the camera. Just something so that you end seeing the two of them together. Like that would have been cool. Like I like that he pulled his hat. The very, very last shot is his hat being pulled back into the apartment.
Yeah.
So you do see something, but I just wanted to see the two of them. I just wanted to.
Larry meets the director of It, and now he's the director of Indiana Jones. Apparently, he's like,
I'm doing the rewrites for the recut out the recut version. So you can expect.
No, I understand what you're saying. Like the shots in the order I can see what I know what you wanted. It's just, the end shot I thought was kind of clever, like when he pulls the hat in. I thought just because the last thing you see is his hat, like which I thought was kind of cool too. But but no, it was good. I know exactly what you're saying. Like it was like I thought it was going to be a bit bigger, but I still was like there was a tear, just one rolling down. Like.
Yes, and again, it's one of those things that if we go back to see the movie again, I feel like that the emotion might be stronger. You know what I mean? Like knowing it's coming, I feel like just because when you go in the first time, you expect something at the end, like you expect an ending, and if it doesn't happen, then you're like a bit thrown off. But knowing what the ending is, I can relax and be like, here it comes. Oh my God, they're gonna be kissing. And maybe I will. Maybe I'll be a mess, and I'll recant all of what I've just said.
I had one more hit, and I don't think I had any misses. My hit and miss are kind of like I'll put them in the same one.
Okay.
But my hit is this cast I thought was stellar in this. I thought like everybody was excellent in it, start to finish. I love like some of the returning characters. Again, we've been talking about Marion and then John Rhys Davies showing
Yes.
back up. Like I thought that was great.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it just seemed like a classic cast, like for a movie. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge was excellent, and I
Yes.
thought she was good. My only miss about her was it's still a little confusing exactly her intentions. And again, maybe if I watched it again, I'd get it a little more like what her like. She just seemed like someone that's always like joking around like all the time and didn't care about anything that was happening like in the movie. Like no matter how the situation they were in, she sort of just like joked her way out of it. And I wasn't really sure what her intentions were in the movie, even near at the end, like what she was doing. Like she was just selling artifacts, I guess, for money.
That was I guess I could sort of put that as a little bit of a miss because like she knew what her father was doing in collecting these things and wanting them to be archived in museums and how important the history was. So I'm not sure at what point in her life she changed from these things are important to be put in museums and maintain history to I got to get them because I'm making the money. I want to sell.
I just wasn't
bitter. I'm not sure when in her life that changed. But again, maybe it was said I missed it. I'm not sure, but that I was a little bit
like what put her on that path.
Yes,
to the kind of person that she ended up being. But I mean, she did have a great arc. Like she was like by the end, she was like kind of understood what was going on and had a full change of heart of everything that was happening. But that was just a little minor thing with her character. I was just wasn't quite like didn't quite know when she transitioned to being such a like an idiot, like as far as like selling all these artifacts and like a bit of an asshole in that way. But I'm not really sure what but it was like, but it's fine. I mean, I bet if I watched it again, I'd probably, again, we've only watched it once, so I'm sure there was more dialogue I may have missed that explained more of that sort of character background.
Exactly. I feel like this movie is going to be one that keeps growing. Like it's going to keep getting better, and I think it will become sort of, I don't know if it'll ever be on par with the first three, but it will be up there. Like I feel like people will be talking about Dial of Destiny in the same conversation that they have with, The Last Crusade. I think it will be kind of on the same level. It will be a solid continuation of this, because the more you see it, I think the more you'll get the nuances and the characters and their motivations and all of that. But I think it will take. So like you said, this is literally our first reactions, having seen the movie a couple of days ago, but we wanted to get it out while it was fresh and talk about this thing. And we'll 2 years from now we'll do another one when we've seen it about 12 more times.
See where it ranks.
Yes.
I remember there's certain Star Wars movies I thought were great, and then they kind of ranked down as I watched them more. But I would put this on level with Crusade, like 100%. Because I was Crusade of the first three was never like my like I like Crusade.
Yes.
I just thought it was convoluted with having the dad in it and stuff, which like he was great in it, but I just thought it was like a little more convoluted than when you have like, these extra like main characters all of a sudden that have to share the screen with him. But kind of dragging him down a little bit, like as far as like what he can do because he's got dad with him. But anyways, but no, I thought this was great. I thought this was a great movie. I enjoyed it. I wasn't like bored really during it or anything, and I wasn't like ever thinking, oh my god, like why is there monkeys in a tree going faster than a vehicle? Like there was never a point like that in this. Why is there a CGI gopher? Like I didn't think
nobody was eaten by ants at a big anthill. That didn't happen. No, none of those things happened.
Well, one of the things I'll just say as well is that like it sort of checked all the Indiana Jones boxes.
Yes.
Exotic locales, there was bugs, there was like like everything, like the music, like everything you'd want in an Indiana Jones movie was in this movie.
There was even references to snakes, even though they weren't really snakes. Those look like snakes. They do not.
I felt like that scene was like, where hasn't Indiana Jones gone yet? He hasn't gone underwater. Let's do it.
Exactly. And what?
That was different. I like that. I like that scene. I thought it was pretty cool.
And I have a thing about underwater peril scenes. Like that really gets to me because it's a fear. Like I always in my whole life kind of had this fear of not drowning, but just getting like stuck underwater kind of thing. So, and they did that really well. Like when when their airlines were cut and they were down there, I was like, oh my God, this is tense, you know? So I think they did a great job. And yeah, it was totally different. Underwater was great. Like put them underwater. They've never done it before. And they were really underwater. It wasn't Avatar where they CG'd them underwater. Like they were in a tank or wherever they shot this underwater swimming. I thought it just felt good. It felt real.
Yeah, no, it was great. I thought it was great. And it was Antonio Banderas was good. And
yes.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. It was just a fun movie start to finish. And again, if you don't like it, you don't have a soul. That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it. There is absolutely nothing to be said about you anymore. That's it. You're done.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but it's like, I mean, I don't know what perfect is. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, of course, like, you know, our love of Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom and that, like, you're never gonna hit that lightning in a bottle again. But this is some good thunder in a bottle. Like it's like,
there you go. That's right. It's not lightning in a bottle. This one's thunder. Totally, 100%. Yeah, not perfect, but as perfect as it could be for an ending. I thought it was.
Yeah, and I feel like on a second watching, I'll like it even better. Like so. Yeah. Whereas Crystal Skull, when I walked out of Crystal Skull, I was like, that was not good. Yeah. I'm not being biased towards Indiana Jones because I love the series or whatever. Because I actually walked out of that one going, like.
We watched that one together. We actually walked out mad. Like we were like actually angry, which I've never been coming out of a movie. And it was like it hasn't gotten better. Like no matter how many times.
When I just rewatched it a week ago, I want to like this movie. Yeah. And there again, there's some parts that are kind of good, but then there's a lot in it that's just like right off the top, like I don't know.
Yeah, not good. But this one I felt good coming out. I was happy. I still feel good. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Like, and that's for me, that's the mark of a good movie is if I come out of it and think, okay, I'm ready to go again. You know, as opposed to
I feel like I missed something. When that I missed some stuff, and I'll see a lot more on a second viewing, which I will enjoy. And perhaps next week I'll go again and recheck it out. So, but anyways, that's our review of Indiana Jones: Dial of Destiny, and hopefully you have watched it before you watch this, or else there's a lot spoiled for you. We never did spoil the exact ending. We didn't other than the.
We pretty much. Oh no, I guess
most of it
happens, but we did spoil
most of it.
Literally the final scenes.
So this is for sure our last episode. There's no bonus episode or anything else. So thank you so much.
Come up with something, but
until something happens. So we'll be back in the fall, brand new season 6. Thank you again for watching. Check us out on our socials, and we'll see you next time on Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. Fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.